Opera in alternative spaces is a hot trend, and Gotham Chamber Opera is on top of it with its current staging of Francesco Cavalli's Elio Gabello at the Box, an East Village night spot better known for all-night raunchy burlesque shows. And why not? This 1668 opera, written for Venice but not staged until 1999, is about the 3rd century Roman Emperor Heliogabalus, the youth of rapacious and omnivorous sexual appetites, who was assassinated at the age of 18 after a 4-year reign. In Aurelio Aureli's libretto, Heliogabalus pursues Aridia and Flavia, both of whom love other males, creates an all-female senate, stages a banquet intended to include a rape and a poisoning, and is finally murdered. His virtuous cousin Alessandro then ascends the throne. Director James Marvel and set designer Carol Daly wedged the piece into the intimate space. A long banquet table became the runway down the middle of the room, extending the playing area from the tiny stage and putting the spectators in medias res. There was certainly a lot to see. Matty Ulrich's outrageous costumes featured deliberately tawdry and over-the-top pieces, like a studded silver codpiece and fishnet stockings for Heliogabalus and a dominatrix outfit for Aridia. And then there were the topless dancers, 3 women and 1 man in lavender wigs and towering lucite high heels, who, in their appreciation choreography by Austin McCormick, right on the runway within arm's length of the audience and left absolutely nothing to the imagination. The burlesque show's staging fit the story, but Cavalli's score, which is predominantly recitative, wanted more sensitive shaping of the vocal music and subtlety in continuo accompaniment than it got here. Music director Grant Harried and Daniel Swenberg played overly Mike both on one side of the stage, and were not always quite in sync with Mildoran harpsichord and the Fortini-sounding baroque string players on the other side. The singers were a game group. Countertenor Christopher Ainsley sang stylishly and committed completely and hilariously to the vileness of the title character. The eloquent mezzo Emily Grace Ryder brought affecting pathos to the laments of Alessandro, the virtuous lover of Flavia. Susanna Miller, an imposing soprano, gave Aridia a snappy edge. Michela Estate looked pretty but sounded insecure as Flavia. The comic characters got out of hand, one weary of tenor on Easterlin's luge tick as the elderly female Baudelinia, and her pursuit of the servant Nervulone the sturdy baritone Brandon Siegel. Countertenor Randall Scotting, mezzo Daryl Friedman and soprano May Holland completed the cast. There was also an aerialist, Brian Joseph Ferry, who made a precipitous descent from the balcony playing an Alville Homan. The musical performance could have used some of his beauty and control. By contrast, the New York premiere of André Previn's 1998 opera A Streetcar Named Desire at Carnegie Hall last Thursday was all about the music. The performance, given the bare-bones but effective staging by Brad Alton, showcased Mr. Previn's richly symphonic score and adroit orchestration, and the talents of its leading lady, Renee Fleming, for whom it was written. 15 years after the opera's premiere, Ms. Fleming's soprano no longer has the soaring richness of those days, but the occasional scoop and middle voice inaudibility actually seemed quite apt for a role of Blanche, the fading Southern belle who is trying desperately to preserve her facade of gentility in the face of real life. In case you've forgotten the Tennessee Williams play, transformed into a libretto by Philip Little, Blanche is pretending that her checkered past never happened, but her brother-in-law, Stanley, is having none of it. As Blanche's defenses crumbled over the course of the opera, Ms. Fleming's performance grew stronger. Her final retreat into fantasy, imagining the gentle death at sea, and taking the hand of the doctor who is packing her off to an asylum, was sung with a bright purity that was all the more touching for being the voice of an earlier time. It was also poignant to hear Ms. Fleming alongside the lush, youthful soprano of Susanna Phillips as an almost unconsciously sexy Stella, who has surrendered joyfully to the brutal, elemental Stanley, sung with barking ferocity and acted with menace by baritone Teddy Tattoo Rhodes. Tenor Anthony Dean Griffey gave a heartfelt performance as the supersize but emotionally immature Mitch, who becomes Blanche's gentleman caller for a little while. Though his vocal parts sometimes meandered, Mr. Previn's orchestral writing was smart and evocative, encompassing hints of Benjamin Britten and touches of jazz, like the sinuous saxophone riffs that color the rhapsodic, earthy relationship of Stella and Stanley. Patrick Summers, conducting the orchestra of St. Luke's, positioned behind the singers on the Carnegie stage, paced the evening with energy. Mr. Dalton's ingenious staging using just a few chairs, tables and a bed that were fluidly moved around by 5 bare-chested Stanley look-alikes created the claustrophobic atmosphere of Stanley and Stella's apartment and allowed the singers, in Johann Stedner's period costumes, to create the story through the music. Stephanie Blythe, the powerhouse mezzo-soprano who triumphs at the Metropolitan Opera in everything from Handel to Wagner, showed off her affinity for Tin Pan Alley at her Carnegie Hall recital last week with the pianist Warren Jones. After a decorous first half, a generic set of Emily Dickinson songs by James Legge and a Samuel Barber group MS. Blythe cut loose with numbers like Button Up Your Overcoat, Buddy DeSilva/Lou Brown/Ray Henderson and Night and Day Cole Porter. Ms. Blythe's sound is both enormous and penetrating, with trumpet tones on top and richness in the lower register, and she's a master of diction. She was channeling Ethel Merman, but it seemed so easy for her that it felt superficial. In songs like Irving Berlin's Always, I wanted to hear her go deeper, free up the rhythms and show why these songs matter to her.